2020 is looking to be a year for big budget space games, with at least a few of them coming from very high profile development studios. The space game genre then is in a great place. However, that said, many of these titles are existing games that are going to be receiving updates throughout the year. And of course, there are also numerous indie space games due for release, and for those titles do keep an eye out for my upcoming indie space game video. For a look at the upcoming and updated space games of 2020 then, let's get to it. Years in the making, and with a budget of over $22 million, Dual Universe is certainly continuing to generate a lot of interest. With both a beta and full release currently scheduled for 2020, Dual Universe could potentially be one of the biggest space games of the year. And yes, it's very literally aiming to be a huge space game. This multiplayer title is set on a single shared server, which the developer claims could potentially hold millions of players. With huge numbers of players being the goal then, it makes sense that Dual Universe has a player-driven content at its heart. From player-created spaceships and buildings to player-driven economics and politics, it really is all there. It's a risk to be sure, but if it works, then the payoff could be exceptional. After all, EVE Online has proven that player-driven space games can certainly work, and that they can hold up for decades at a time. And with the ability to seamlessly travel between fully rendered atmospheric planets, Dual Universe will certainly offer a compelling game world. The game has been in alpha access for quite a while now, and is covered by a very tight NDA, so it's certainly not easy to get a peek at the current state of play with the game. However, the developers release regular dev diaries and information updates. Also, the upcoming beta will drop the NDA and then offer a far better insight into what's going on with the game. Now, if you're into building in the space in any form whatsoever and enjoy player-driven politics, Dual Universe is highly likely to be a title you should keep your eye on. Star Citizen is not a fully released game. However, a number of titles in this video fall into the early access camp, so I felt it only fair to also include the alpha release of the long-awaited Star Citizen. The recent CitizenCon highlighted the direction the game is heading in and showed off dynamic and persistent economy, simulation and NPCs. It also revealed the first jump point and the second star system. And whilst there's no date on when these things will be in the game, the Star Citizen roadmap does show a number of new features scheduled to arrive in 2020. These include major new landing zones, the implementation of the fully realised gas giant Crusader, in addition to the multiple landable moons of the planet Microtech. A dynamic mission system is due in the first quarter of 2020, along with expanded multi-crew and salvage gameplay further into the year. Naturally, new ships and vehicles are also scheduled for release throughout the year. Despite the ongoing controversy around the game, it continues to make steady progress with regular improvements and updates. Let's see then where Star Citizen is at the end of 2020. Released on PC this year, Rebel Galaxy Outlaw is a fantastic space game that is true to the genre's roots. Heavily inspired by Freelancer and other titles from yesteryear, Rebel Galaxy Outlaw brings the modern age to those titles. In 2020, Rebel Galaxy will be coming to both the PlayStation 4 as well as the Switch, and I'm especially personally looking forward to having an open-world space game on Nintendo's portable console. Stepping into the shoes of protagonist Juno, the player has the freedom to explore the Rebel Galaxy universe as they see fit. With multiple star systems and a multitude of space stations, players can fight, trade, mine and explore their way across the game world. The game also features a fairly lengthy campaign, not to mention one of the most comprehensive soundtracks from any game in recent years. For those of you then looking for a fully feature-complete space game experience on the Switch, Rebel Galaxy Outlaw is gonna be great. Another build-everything title, Starbase, is due to enter early access in 2020, and it will allow players to build everything from small spaceships to vast, fully functional space stations. The economy will be player-driven, with players gaining the ability to create and join factions, which will ultimately lead to ongoing and ever-changing power structures across the game world. Taking on the form of a robot body, players will be free to fight, explore and build in pretty much any way they desire. The entire concept of Starbase then appears to offer players as much freedom as possible in their choices of how they want to approach the game. Developers Frozen Byte have already released a ton of information on the game and release regular videos and dev diaries on the title. The game's Discord server is among the most friendly and active of all space games, so to be sure to check it out if you have any interest at all in the game. One thing's for sure, Starbase is certainly among the more ambitious space game titles and should turn into a very interesting game. Elite Dangerous is among a few titles in this list where we don't really know exactly what is coming during the year. We do know, however, that Elite is scheduled to receive two major updates. The first is the long-awaited Fleet Carriers, tentatively scheduled for around the middle of the year, and this will feature huge capital class sized ships which players will be able to own and move around the galaxy at will. In true Frontier tradition, the specifics are currently sparse, but it will be possible to dock your regular ships with these supersized vessels, and it's widely expected the Fleet Carriers will be able to be used as mobile bases of operations. The second update, Frontier claim, is the largest update ever released for Elite. And this update has the working title of New Era, and there is absolutely no details about it at all, aside from the release date of the end of 2020. Elite Dangerous is certainly among the older space games on this list, and whilst it still feels, plays and looks great, let's hope that the 2020 update knocks it out of the park. Warframe isn't technically a space game, but all of that is due to change in 2020 with the game's newest upcoming update called Empyrean. And this will place full of spaceships in the control of players' hands, allowing them to engage in ship-to-ship combat. As with everything in Warframe though, it doesn't end there. Empyrean will also allow players to roam around the interior of their ships and will offer full shipboarding combat. This means it will be necessary to repel aggressive NPCs from your ships, and also means that you will have the ability to gain entry to enemy vessels in order to take them down from the inside. As one of the oldest titles in this list, Warframe arrived in 2013 and soon established itself as one of the best examples of a live service game, and the open development is certainly refreshing to say the least. The Empyrean update then is set to change the game on a number of levels, making now perhaps the best time ever to start getting into Warframe. The sister title to Star Citizen, the single-player campaign-driven Squadron 42, is still officially scheduled for beta release in 2020. However, continued delays on the roadmap have led to expectations that the title might slip into 2021. For now, however, developer CIG are still officially aiming for a beta release of 2020. Squadron 42 then is set to feature all manner of spaceships as well as first-person gameplay. Headed by a cast of Hollywood actors such as Mark Hamill, Gary Oldman, Gillian Anderson and Henry Cavill, this title almost certainly is as much of a movie as it is a game, and that's perhaps to be expected with it being a spiritual successor to the video-driven Wing Commander series. It's a title that CIG are attempting to keep under wraps in terms of story through fears of releasing too many spoilers. However, Squadron 42 is certainly an ambitious game and is going to be extremely important for CIG. Everspace 2 is very much a massive evolution of the original title. No longer a roguelike, Everspace 2 opens up to a full galaxy with hundreds of locations and multiple star systems to explore. The visuals are absolutely stunning and just beg to be explored. Unlike any true space game, players would have the ability to fight, trade and explore as best suits their own individual approach. Whilst full release of the game is still a fair way off, developer Rockfish Studios have been busily showing off the extremely functional demo prototype build of the game, and this is one that I've personally had hands-on experience with, and I genuinely feel this title is offering an extremely impressive space game experience. Persistence of course is a big thing for any space title, and that is one area in which Everspace 2 dramatically changes compared to its predecessor. In the new title, players will have a permanent base of operations where they can dock and store their ships. Loot gathering and ship upgrades are a massive focus for the game, with the developers comparing it to traditional looter games such as the Diablo series. Now, this may seem a bit of an odd comparison for a space game, but it's one that makes sense as the game offers massive amounts of upgrade paths and looting options. This then, along with the unique visuals and rapid deep combat experiences, are all set to make Everspace 2 one of the standout space games of 2020. The title is due to enter early access towards the end of 2020, with full release scheduled for 2021. Now here's a very brief look for No Man's Sky, which had a fantastic year in 2019 with a slew of updates that, to all intents and purposes, turned it into one of the best space games available. Hello Games have stated that more updates are to come in 2020, and if those updates are anything like 2019, then No Man's Sky players are in for a real treat. Unfortunately, there's not a lot I can say about this particular title, as pretty much everything has been said, and unfortunately there's nothing left to say for 2020, as for now at least, we don't know anything, but I'm pretty confident that No Man's Sky is going to continue to evolve into one of the best ever space games. EVE Online has been around since 2003 and will no doubt continue into 2020 and beyond. Whilst there's little information on the development of the game over the coming year, a new EVE title is now available, and this is EVE Echoes, a mobile version of the game. Unsurprisingly, the mobile version of the game is EVE Online in its true form. Developer CCP have teamed up with NetEase in order to get this game produced, and CCP's long heritage is very much apparent. In short then, EVE Echoes is a full-scale space game with all the trappings. There seems to be no intention to limit this game for the mobile market, and as such, the full complexity of EVE will eventually be present on this platform. Existing as a fully independent game world, EVE Echoes will have no association with the events or server of the PC title. However, you can expect to find a fully driven player economy, and no doubt Echoes will quickly generate all the player-created stories and intrigue that the PC version of the game is famous for. EVE Echoes is currently available as a beta title for both Android and iOS, and it continuously receives extensive updates. With the exception of Starfield, Beyond Good and Evil 2 is perhaps one of the most high-profile upcoming space games simply because it's being created by one of the largest studios out there, Ubisoft. Now, even though the title of the game contains a 2 within it, it's nonetheless a prequel to the original 2003 title. Joining the space titles with seamless space travel among atmospheric worlds, Beyond Good and Evil 2 injects a huge amount of detail into its game world. Largely story-driven, the title will essentially be an RPG with spaceships. Each planet will apparently have its own society within which the player can engage in certain tasks, and all of this can be affected by the decisions the player makes within the game. Currently, Beyond Good and Evil 2 doesn't have a release date, so whilst 2020 is a remote possibility, it does seem unlikely, but it nevertheless deserves an honorary mention here in this video. It also seems entirely possible that this will be a next generation release. Kerbal Space Program 2, without a doubt, is going to be the most scientifically accurate space game here. Allowing you to build rockets and relying heavily on accurate real-world physics, Kerbal Space Program has always been one of the best games to teach you about space and orbital mechanics. Kerbal Space Program 2 then will up the ante in pretty much every way, especially on the scale factor. Following the original theme of allowing players to create their very own rockets and spaceships and challenging them to function correctly, any successful rocket launch is an achievement in its own right. Some of the new highlights of the game include interstellar travel, the ability to build colonies, and multiplayer. This game is almost guaranteed to generate huge interest and is still aiming for a 2020 release. So then, that concludes this look at the most important releases and updates for space games in 2020. As you can tell, there's plenty to look forward to. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.